nowadays is a very interesting time. It's a little bit more difficult to find good, reliable help.
Right.
So just having a good tool belt, Rolodex is imperative, to keep your jobs moving along.
Your network is your net worth. Come listen to some of the most successful people I know share invaluable knowledge, stories, and advice in real estate, business, and beyond. This is Weiss Advice. Whether you want to take your business or personal life to the next level, look no further.
Welcome back to another episode of Weiss Advice. I am your host, as always, Yona Weiss, and with me today is another incredible guest. Guys, I don't know if you have ever heard of Luke Florian, but he is someone that you are going to be glad that you tuned in to the episode today to listen to his story and to learn more about what he's got working on. Luke, how you doing today?
Good, Yona. Very, very excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I mean, Luke is, just for you guys to get a little bit of background, and we'll get into your story a little bit more, but he's a real estate investor. Been doing this for a long time. And when I say a long time, we'll talk about how early his start actually began, but he's been involved in various different stages of real estate, from brokering to buying, holding, wholesaling, managing, everything in between. And now he's working on self-storage as well as multifamily and a hotel conversion, which I'm excited to learn a little more about today. And he's an avid skier. And if you follow him on Instagram, you will see a lot of his skiing expeditions. So excited to talk to you today, Luke.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, just again, really happy to be here and give you a little background and just relate to a lot of your listeners on different tips and tricks and show them how you can go from zero to insurmountable heights.
Insurmountable, absolutely. That's a good way of putting it, because we've heard from so many guests on this podcast, people that have been involved in, very W-2 and living in corporate America, but you've pretty much been involved in real estate throughout your career, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'll get into one of my worst jobs later on in this discussion, but yeah, literally from starting, I decided to buy my first multifamily in 7th grade study hall with one of my friends. And I actually had a cousin who was 19 or 20 at the time. He had just bought his first property, which I was completely impressed. And I'm like, I got it. I'm a little competitive, or a lot competitive. And so I'm talking to my buddy. We both had paper routes. We were making $200-$300 a week in middle school. We were like, we had tons of money. We went out to the movies. We were handing out 20s to everybody that needed a spot, right? So we said, what are we going to do? Well, my cousin bought a house, and he's 4 or 5 years older. Like, we should buy houses. So we did, and I continued to save my money, save my nickels. I was lucky enough, by the time I was 18, be able to pull the trigger on that first 2-family.
Wow. And, so it wasn't in 7th grade. It wasn't in 7th grade that you bought that house.
I made the decision.
Right.
I read the books. I read the Rich Dad Poor Dad. And it's just, I just flooded my mind with positive things and, how to buy real estate. And, I'm a student of real estate. What can I say?
That's incredible. Wow. So 18 years old, you buy a duplex. And were you living in one of the units, or did you rent out both of them?
No, I stayed living at home. Are you kidding me? You gotta get that cash flow. So no, I rented it out, and I was actually bussing tables at the time at a local restaurant, and I rented. I was talking to the wait staff. I said, "Yeah, I'm buying a 2-family." They're like, "You're 18. You can't buy a 2-family." Well, I'm closing on Monday. So come to find out, a lot of the cooks and dishwashers that I worked closely with for a few years there, they needed a place to live. So they ended up renting from me, and they're literally still there today.
Wow.
On the 2nd floor. So which they've almost paid off that property for me. So
that's incredible. Talk about long-term tenants, right? That's awesome.
Yeah. So real exciting stuff. And it's really spawned into this portfolio. As you know, I'm an owner operator of apartments, and I've had their share of flipping and wholesaling over the years. So it's really spawned into this real beautiful company with a great culture. And I'm really lucky to earn hard work, breeds luck,
course.
right? But I'm lucky to have good people that surround me and a family that supports me as well.
That's
So,
awesome. Yeah. So you mentioned
yeah.
like in your bio, 800 deals that you've been a part of over over the course of, how many years we're talking about? 10, 15 years?
Yeah, that's 06, 07 was my first deal.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of that is entry level wholesales, like early on, probably the first couple hundred deals. And I have and still do today a lot of wholesale. So we talk a lot about having multiple streams of income, right? So there's the wholesaling aspect. There's the fix and flip, flipping, which I like to call residential redevelopment. Just has a nicer tone to it, I guess.
Sure.
Flipping can have a not so good connotation on occasion. I believe we put out a really good product, and I stand behind my product. If a client bought a house from us 6 months ago and there's an issue and it's something that we worked on, we'll go in there and we'll fix it.
That's awesome.
You got to stand behind what you do.
100%. And are most of the properties that you're buying or that you are redeveloping, are they in Connecticut where you live in the area?
Yeah, I'd say 90% of what we buy is in Connecticut. We've done deals in Maine, Florida, Massachusetts, Vermont, New York. And so we are expanding. I'm actively marketing in Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut right now. Also looking in Florida and North Carolina at different storage opportunities as well. So.
Gotcha. Okay. So tell me if you can, of those 800 deals, anything, any deal that just kind of jumps out, that something was just like really exciting, something that really either that was just exciting or you learned a very big lesson from. If you reach into the storage banks and pull out some good juicy story for us.
Absolutely. So I was 24 years old. It was one of my first larger flips. And the lesson here is to get the right type of insurance. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
You have to get the right type of insurance. Vacant dwelling with builder's risk. I was actually, I had gone to court for a speeding ticket. Young guy, driving around fast, really busy. Sitting there in line, I got his phone number. It was calling me over and over again. So I stepped aside, took the call, and it was a police officer. Said, "Mr. Florian, your property is burning down over on Natchog Drive. You better get over here right away." I look up to the judge or whoever was presiding or we were waiting in line, told him the situation, and he's like, "Get out of here, son." He's like, "Go." But he didn't know. It's not like I had a family there.
Right.
It was empty, but nonetheless, like my heart dropped. And
I
sped to the scene and and one of my investors, I called him on the way and he was pretty calm, cool, and collected. And, he's like, "It's okay, Luke, you got the right insurance." And, my mentors taught me early on and, follow a system, a process, and follow a path where people have been successful before you and you can't go wrong. And we ended up really making out and ended up selling as a lot. And so that was probably one of my most memorable flips, if you will. And you bet you that we had a hard money lender at the time, and he showed up immediately looking for his check, so, right. But he knew we were insured properly. And that's a pretty memorable deal. And they don't all go down that way.
Yeah, definitely don't. But the lesson, and I love the lesson there because you had the systems in place, right? Had you not had the proper insurance, that could have been disastrous for you, for investors.
Right. Well, especially at 24 years old, where I'm just building my portfolio and building my cash flows and saving my pennies for rentals.
Absolutely. Yeah. And credibility. Obviously it's not your fault.
Right.
Nothing, fires aren't something that are negligible, but it will stay on your record and it's something that can, burn you, of course, so to speak, down the road.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. So, and then that wasn't my last fire either. So we've had other things, but when you do a lot of deals, you come across a lot of situations. So.
Absolutely. Now you've transitioned. I shouldn't say transition, but you have spread out. You've kind of diversified into other asset classes. You said multiple streams of income. You got the wholesaling business. You got the fix and flip, right? Residential redevelopment business. You have many multifamily properties that you own and manage, and you're also a self-storage investor.
Yeah. I will be closing on my first facility come end of May.
Gotcha.
Really nice. I'm actually doing a nice little 1031 from a 3-family that I had purchased 4 or 5 years ago. So we're doing a nice 1031 exchange into the storage facility, which is your typical mom and pop run. They fill it up. They don't raise rates for 5 or 8 or 10 years. And you go in day one and you raise rates and you add some technology and make some adjustments. So really, really exciting deal. And I'm excited to just become a little more diversified within real estate because, listen, I invest in what I understand. So it's real estate, right? So I'm not a stock guy. I'm not a crypto guy, so it's exciting. I've been trying to get into it for years and the stars have aligned.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many aspects to real estate and different ways that you can invest, different ways you can diversify.
Sure.
And you're doing something else that is a little bit more diversified right now as well. And I'd love to hear about other areas that you've maybe explored, found success with as well. But let's talk about that hotel redevelopment
that's
or conversion.
That's a very exciting deal. And
tell me a little more about that.
Had brought it to me about 4 to 5 years ago. And I had looked at it, ran the numbers, and with where we were with interest rates, the economy, and just where everything was across the board, it just wasn't making sense. I couldn't get the deal to pencil out. And maybe the sellers weren't as motivated. So I had, right in the heart of COVID, I was dropping my mom off at the airport. I was on the way back. I had a hunch. I'm like, Luke, you gotta just call the owners of the Iron Horse and let's just see if you can put a deal together. When I'm driving, I'm always trying to hands-free and safely, of course. I'm usually on the phone. So I gave them a call. They remembered me, had a very light conversation. They're like, Luke, why don't you just come right over and let's have a chat. So with my mask on, I walked right in there and, an elderly couple, sweet couple. And we literally put a deal together on the back of a napkin. So went home and just went through all my resources, called different architects, engineers, and knew I had to get a team assembled pretty quick. So fast forward to today. I mean, we ended up closing on it this past December, and we had approvals for 25 apartments. So it's roughly a 20,000 square foot building, converting it to 25 apartments, which is 21 one-bedrooms and 4 efficiencies, which is primo location in Simsbury, Connecticut. So I'm really excited to bring this to market.
That's awesome. And so how long do you project the develop or redevelopment process to take you?
Sure. So I think we'll be leasing units come late summer, early fall.
Oh, wow. That quick.
Yeah. As we gutted the whole place in a matter of a week and a half. And we have, structural steels going in as we speak. We're starting to frame out the first floor. Underground plumbing's done. All the site work is starting this week. Really, weather is cooperating somewhat with us here in Connecticut right now. So we're not in the middle of a deep freeze, but that's going to change by Friday, as we all know. But so yeah, I mean, it's moving along quite nicely, and we're going to handle all the management, the leasing and stuff internally, which is nice. And so we can kind of save on that cost.
Was there a process in terms of rezoning or repurposing that you had to go through? And how was that something new for you, or have you been through that road before?
There was. We did have to get a site plan approval to expand the parking lot. And so I ended up hiring an attorney who a friend of mine had a good relationship with that had done a lot of zoning work. So brought that attorney in, really, really great to work with. And he really helped me streamline the process. It did, however, take almost a year to do. So, did our best to try not to tie up too much capital in the meantime. And while I was doing that, we're literally putting together projected floor plans and just price estimates on the whole project. So there was a ton of moving parts, a little bit of a learning curve, but nothing a little hard work and extra hours early in the morning and late at night can't overcome, so. For sure.
It's fascinating to me that, like I said earlier on in the episode, we were discussing how there are so many people out there who get into real estate. And I think a lot of our listeners can relate to this, get into real estate kind of later in life or hear about it and weren't part of the club or didn't figure it out. I mean, you had figured it out very early on somehow, right? You were given that hunch, through a cousin and through your story in junior high school, right? But how is this? I mean, you've decided obviously proactively that this is your path. Yeah. This is something you are invested into something your whole life is kind of revolving around.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what do you recommend to someone who may not be in that situation and they're maybe in a career or maybe they're doing something else? Like, is it that easy just to kind of get involved? And if so, like what would you recommend, like the barrier to entry?
Yeah. So it's all about taking that first step, right? We hear in so many different books and parables and advice from people, but take that first step. Biggest thing I would say is to get into your own piece of real estate, whether it's a 2 or 3 or a 4. If you're lucky enough to find a 4-unit building, but buy something that's going to offset your largest monthly expense, which is your housing cost, especially today, with inflation and interest rate risk. Interest rates are going to start going up. I mean, even if they go up a point over the next year, to me, it's not that big of a deal, but it's gonna happen. But if anyone that's looking to get in, buy a multifamily. Interest rates are favorable, low down payments, low to no down payments. Here in Connecticut, there's USDA loans you can get in certain towns that are more sparsely populated, and you can get 0 down loans, in certain areas. So every state has its own programs, but you gotta offset your monthly expenses. So I think by getting your first multifamily, that's a good start. And to go with that, join your local real estate investors association. I became good friends with the owners of our local, Connecticut Real Estate Investors Association 15, 18 years ago. And they became good friends. And I can't tell you how much value that they brought to me and many others as well. So
I'm sure. Yeah. The networking, you meet lenders that way, you meet brokers, you get so many deals, I'm sure, right?
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. So, and there's plenty of people that are willing to teach and take people under their wing. And I like to point people in the right direction, or I get people reaching out to me from time to time, and I try and leverage my resources and point them in the right direction to people, whether it be a broker, a mentor, or someone that could really kind of help them take that first step.
That's incredible advice. I would agree with that wholeheartedly. And if you can't join and if there is not a real estate investment association club in your city, then start one, right? Like
exactly. Yeah. Do a meetup, something. Yeah. Just create that platform.
Exactly. Do something. Among all of the explorations you've done within real estate, is there anything have you made any big mistakes? Like, oh yeah, let's go into this deal, or let's try flipping land, or I don't know. People have done so many crazy things, right? And tried out different things.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've done some of those deals where overly ambitious and just tried it out and were unsuccessful.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say I was unsuccessful on any deals, but the one thing I could where I had needed to improve on was really putting together our scopes of work and having extra contractors, backup contractors. Nowadays is a very interesting time. It's a little bit more difficult to find good, reliable help.
Right.
So just having a good tool belt Rolodex is imperative, to keep your jobs moving along. But at one point in my career, we had a hard time putting together our scopes of work, and just so the moral of the story is just to have a very clear scope, a very clear understanding of what your contractor's responsibilities are and what their deliverables are to make sure things run smoothly.
Understood. Yeah. I mean, notoriously, contractors, until you find the right one, let's put it that way, can take advantage of certain situations.
Yeah, for sure. And, with my background in building and remodeling, it's been pretty streamlined in terms of, finding people and knowing what a proper job is supposed to be completed and what it's supposed to look like, especially going back 10 years ago when I was really starting to grease the wheels and start moving faster. But, and we have really good systems in place now, but yeah, you really got to have that scope in place to have a clear vision moving forward for your projects.
Awesome. So let's talk about that for a second. Vision, if you will. What do you see your vision for your company, for your team, your family, whatever you want to say, the next 5-10 years? Sure. I don't know if you have those kind of goals.
I do. So right now we're closing in on almost 150 apartments in the very near future here. So with stuff we're working on and under contract. So I want to get up to 500 apartments and 500,000 square feet of self-storage in the next 3 years. We're moving pretty quick. So I think we'll be having our second facility under contract here, before the end of the first quarter. And we have other apartment developments in the pipeline as well, which we'll be talking cost seg as well.
Yeah, for sure. So, cost seg can be great on not just multifamily and self-storage. It can be great in all asset classes. So
yeah, absolutely. So, that's what it's really all about. And for me, I just love real estate and the lifestyle it provides. I'm ever since COVID started, I'm just going to, we got to talk about COVID a little bit. It's nice that it seems to be trending down, but a little bit of a silver lining because, I worked from home and it didn't affect my business too much. And I got to stay with my daughter even more. So I was forced to stay home and come up with systems to, basically manage our contractors and manage our tenants' needs remotely. And I get to stay home with my daughter every single day, So, and throughout that, because it forced me to find new people and new systems and ways of doing things, my company literally doubled in size since in the last 2 years. So it's, I can't think of any other industry or business that I could be in. I'm sure there's something, but for me, it's a true blessing. And just to be able to be, with my wife and my daughter and, be able to pass that knowledge down means everything to me. So
that's so profound. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of people struggle with I have to work harder, I have to put in more hours. But if you actually find the right people and create teams, you can spend more time doing those things you love doing and spend more time with the family.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's not just about me and my family, my wife and daughter. It's about my team too. So a lot of my team, they work remote too. They have family in Florida. They have family, all over the country or, spouses that travel for work and they go with them sometimes. And that's freaking cool. That's really cool. And, so my office manager, so she'll say, hey, I'm going with my husband to XYZ state, next week. Just want to give you a little heads up. And we kind of all check around. We're like, all right, we got your back, So it's giving our team members the flexibility and the freedom, hence Freedom Property LLC, So yeah, it's not just a company name. It's our part of our culture.
That's awesome. Love that.
So, yeah. Freedom, flexibility, and lifestyle. Really what I'm all about.
That's amazing. And you live up to it yourself, right? I mean, you do some traveling as well, right?
Yeah. We do some traveling. We do Airbnb too. So we talk about multiple streams of income.
Oh yeah.
So it's coming up on my wife and I, our 5-year wedding anniversary Friday. So amazing how time flies. We, as part of our wedding gift to each other, we bought a ski house. So we call it the gift that keeps on giving. And wonderful. We rented out Airbnb quite a bit. Sometimes I'm a little bitter at how it's rented so much because I want to be there. But nonetheless, it's really the best of both worlds. And we get to share that with a lot of friends and family. And
that's very
couldn't
cool.
be happier. So and we get to ski and, so that's my thing. So if I'm not doing real estate deals, I'm skiing, or sometimes I'm doing them both at the same time.
Yeah,
so.
skiing and doing real estate deals at the same time. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Amazing. So I want to transition now to what we call the final four, Luke. These are 4 questions I ask all my guests. And the first question for you is, what's the worst job that you ever had?
So part of, I think, what's ingrained in my soul with this whole work ethic and whatnot is, growing up being around building and remodeling with, my father's company and whatnot. One summer I started working with him and I started shopping, trying to get people and to do jobs. And we were doing a lot of roofing at the time. So I was pushing roofing. Well, I did 17 roofs that summer with my dad and a couple laborers. And I would not wish that on anybody.
That's crazy.
And that was, anyone that knows roofing. So we had to strip the roof. We had to, you're hauling up the shingle. We didn't have one of those little elevators to move the shingles up. So we had to carry the shingles up on our back. And we hand nailed every single roof. Nowadays, you see the guys up there, they're roofing over a whole housing complex. They got the guns. Mm-hmm. Well, we're hand nailing all those. So that was, I actually, in interesting way. I really enjoyed it. But that was probably the only job I had that was, really grueling, tough.
Yeah, sure. It doesn't sound like a fun job.
No. Taught me the meaning of a dollar.
That's for sure. I'm sure it did.
Right.
Love to hear from you a book you've read that's given you a paradigm shift.
Yeah. So definitely Traction. I have, it's sitting on my desk now. I reference it all the time. We're implementing, a lot of the EOS, a lot of the different aspects of EOS into our business. And I think we're even going to bring in someone from the Traction organization to help us form that and really develop the company into a full EOS company, more or less.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, real exciting. And just with so many moving parts, we just, we've even implemented some technology. So Monday.com we're using as like a task management software. We're using Zoho as a project management software. So we're using different pieces of Traction. So it's all putting it together. So
that's awesome. Yeah, you need to build a team. Obviously that book is going to help you build and streamline the processes to get that done right.
Exactly.
Awesome. So love to hear from you. Third question is, what's a skill or talent that you would like to learn?
I would love to play the guitar. Like if I could just snap my fingers and play the guitar like Peter Frampton, like that would be awesome. And I say that because I heard one of his songs on the way home the other day with my wife, and I'm like, shh, like listen to this. He can make his guitar talk. So I think it's like so cool. So eventually, I'd like to teach myself how to play the guitar. We'll see.
Eventually, you can do it today, right? You could start.
Yeah, it's like spend an hour on learning the guitar or lock up my next real estate deal. It's like I'd rather just do another real estate deal a lot of times because that's
for sure. Yeah, I hear that. No, it's definitely it's a good outlet, guitar, but it does take a lot of practice, a lot of time, a lot of monotonous time. It just scales, It's
I'll report back to you, Yona.
Yeah, I'd love to.
All right, give me a year. All right.
we're gonna get the Weiss Advice podcast band going on with all the people that have wanted to learn a musical instrument as their skill.
That'd be great.
Let's do it. So fourth and final question: what does success mean to you?
Freedom of time, because time is all we have ultimately, right? So money is really just a tool, but freedom of time and just being able to spend days and just moments with the family and having flexibility and options.
Yeah.
So having that lifestyle, it's all, spending time with the family, and the real estate gives that to us. So that's the most important thing to me.
Absolutely. 100%. Love that. Time freedom. It really is. And, you've, thank God, had the success that you've had up until this point, and just continue that road down to everywhere it takes you.
Exactly. But ultimately, time is all we have. So if we have freedom of time to spend that with loved ones, and our real estate business can do that for us, then what's better than that?
100%. Well, I appreciate you taking the time with us today, Luke. Where can our listeners find you or reach out to you if they choose to?
So they could just shoot me an email at, so it's luke@managefreedom.com, or they could find me Instagram. It's Luke J. Florian. You'll see my skiing and real estate adventures. And I'm also on LinkedIn, Luke J. Florian. I'm not quite the LinkedIn pro as Yona is, but I aspire to be maybe a little more over the years here. So, but that's the best way to reach out to me. Just looking to connect, network. We're looking for a sales manager that can help us run our sales team and help us grow and take it to the next level.
Very cool. That's awesome. Okay. Well, we'll try to get this podcast out, published as quick as possible, so we can make sure you get that position filled, hopefully through this. So if you're listening to this and you want to join the team, reach out.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you. And thanks to our listeners for joining us all the way to the end. We love you guys. You guys are awesome. Thank you for tuning in week after week. And I just want to remind you that the best advice comes only when you ask.
Real quick, I have one question for you. Did you like this episode? If you did, I want to ask you a huge favor. See, the biggest thing that helps this podcast grow and that will spread this message to the whole world is that if you leave a review, a rating, and subscribe to the podcast. What that does is it basically tells the platforms that this podcast is out on is that you like my stuff and I'm doing something right. So take a few seconds out of your day, hit that subscribe button, leave a rating or review. I would be extremely grateful. Also, I want to hear from you guys. So I want to hear some feedback. If you have any questions for future episodes, please find me on LinkedIn. Send me a DM, a connection request, Yona Weiss, and I'd love to hear from you.